It
Doing a
is
little-
nice. So this will be on the screen when Sarah and I start. I guess they just kind of leave this up there. Telling you to talk to the person next to you, basically. So you guys can do the, what is it, the Brady Bunch thing?
Are you asking them to do it?
No, the Brady Bunch thing? Hi. Okay.
Oh, man.
Our session is called Finding Success with Your Mid-Market Clients. Sarah, want to read off the agenda?
Sure. What is a mid-market client? Obtaining these clients, providing advisory services. What are advisory services? Tools for reporting, getting paid for services, and finally, success stories.
Save the best for last.
Mhm.
So we can skip this because we already been chatting and you all know who we are, but we'll do our little spiel of who we are.
Oh, how do we make it? No. Oh, it's kind of.
Oh, check out those glasses.
I know, right?
They're right here. Oh, did you see my other ones? Intermission, Linda. Hold on. Here's my other ones, but these progressives didn't work out to be progressives.
Oh my
So
God, I'm so
I need
jealous.
to get progressives. I love you. I love
Okay,
you.
and then of course the CPE process, because it's a 50-minute session, so we only have 50 minutes. So we're going to ask all of you, what do you think a mid-market client is? And feel free to just speak and tell us what you
Unmute.
unmute, say what you like, because we're going to ask the group of people what they think it is, because it's interesting. This is kind of one of those gray areas where everybody has a different way of looking at a mid-market client.
They have a perspective that's unique.
Probably 3 or more attorneys and $1 million in revenue and billing systems in place like a Clio, a lien law, 401k plan in place, payroll is tight. You know, a firm who, to me, a mid-market is somebody who's serious, who's not a solo, who's already gone through that pain.
Ooh,
I like that. I like
See,
that definition.
I like that. That's Steve's take.
Actually, Steve
Next
said
brave soul.
a lot of things, like he even talked about how many employees. I don't know if anybody else wants to define.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Please.
Somebody unmuted too. Yeah, go for it.
I would think it would be more than 1 million, like 5 million. Just off
Okay.
my head.
So you're thinking revenue. Got it, Celia. Okay. Anyone? Who else? Who else has got something for us?
Yeah, I was thinking more on the revenue side as well, because the topic that you're talking about it seems more generalized, right? Like, so not necessarily for a law firm related. So I was more thinking from a revenue standpoint, how do you say, so I was thinking more anywhere from $3 to $5 million.
Absolutely.
Okay, so they're looking more focused more to revenue.
Mhm.
And that's interesting because your stuff that you found, Linda.
Exactly. So this is what I found on statistics on mid-market, because I actually asked Intuit this question because to me, everybody has a different take on it. So Intuit just said, well, if they have 10 to 100 employees, that's what they define as mid-market. And then I found on Google, Investopedia said 5 million to 150 million in assets, which is an interesting way to look at it. 10 to $1 billion in revenue. I think to me, that's a lot bigger than mid-market, but
That's a large size firm.
yes, exactly. And then of course, the SBA didn't have any statistics that I could find, but the middle market is the heart of the US economy. So
I like that. I actually like that.
And we asked Lean Law last week? What do they consider mid-market? Because that's their niche. And they said between 10 and 50 attorneys. So that's specific to law firms, but you are right when you said this is more broad, because we're going to talk about a lot of different industries as well as with mid-market. So, but it's interesting that a lot of you just hung on the revenue because, and it's just from just talking to everybody, you can see that everybody has a different take on it. What do you think mid-market is, Sarah?
Well, I find that's very interesting because a mid-market firm definitely has a number of employees and revenue, but they also have a number of complexities to it that may not be as a standard small business. When you have a standard small business solopreneur, I'm thinking, sure, things are not complex, but they're not as overly complicated in the volume of compensation or how you're going to track your sales funnel or what you're going to do with your production, how many locations you have. Mid-market becomes a much more intricate piece of this higher level. And I feel like probably what is deemed out there in the big world and all these little softwares never will align with what it is that we see in service as advisors. I definitely see there's a disconnect between the two.
I think too, if you're looking at mid-market, in my brain, this is what I think of mid-market, because when I started to think about when these other services started to come into play and take a lot of the clients I used to have, which were, I had a lot of solo clients. I had a lot of, I would call cash basis clients, easy write-up clients where they would just do the work. Global team would do the work, I'd review it. And it was really, a lot of it was bank feed centric. We could kind of do a lot of it automated, and it didn't require a lot of this to do the work. So it's probably that first area that when technology, which is already, look how far we've come, when you start looking at it, it's a huge leap in technology already. When you start to think back of when we first remember being excited over bank fees, and now look at what they are now, and they're always evolving. Those things that we did manually are now really, a lot of it's automated. A lot of write-up, easy, simple write-up clients can be done within minutes. As my friend Seth likes to say, you can bang those out with your feet, with your bank rules, and then there's not a lot to do. So these clients do have more complexities. They will align yourself to the complexities will then evolve into the advisory piece that we all want to do. And all of these pieces, when you think about it, all revolve around our thinking, our experience, the knowledge base we've obtained. So the things that are more, they'll be harder to replicate with technology.
You just said something that I think is an identifier to what maybe doesn't look like a mid-market in one solo firm, but collectively we have a lot of serial entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
If you were to collectively take those serial entrepreneurs with all those multiple businesses and facets, they technically are a mid-market. And that level of engagement is sometimes complex because how many of them are moving money between different locations or different businesses, different EINs? How many of them are partnerships and the complexities on the sales tax, or I'm sorry, the tax side of it with these complexities? We have to, in our industry, do a little bit more to service that, whether we inherited that piece of the business or not in our standard accounting. We are going to have to think about it in a more finite space. And it is, that person becomes a mid-market individual with the collection of businesses. So that's another way to look at it. So you just kind of landed on something that, I mean, I have that right now. I just identified it. So
Yeah, and what makes this interesting is the fact that we do get to add the advisory, but it also, we get paid better, compensated better. So that will lead into, well, I can do the same work or a little bit more interesting work. How do I get them, right?
yeah.
So that's the whole thing, probably why everybody came to this session, is how do we obtain these more lucrative and exciting clients? And I say exciting because for me, I think that the work I did before, I stayed in my little 40-hour box and did this work that was kind of mindless. And now what we do now is exciting. Like Sarah and I get to like plan out and strategize and look and say, oh, well, no wonder they don't have really great cash flow. Look what they're spending on XYZ. And then we bring it to the client's attention, and that's part of it. So that leads into specialization, which is why we have our group, right? Why we want to start to lean into this. And you can lean into this in many facets. It doesn't have to be industry, although industry can be very lucrative.
It depends. It depends on what you're doing. It also can be something that it's a vertical within it. So some people are serving an industry, but within that industry is another vertical of specialty that you can do. I know they call it micro niching, but sometimes it can be a little bit broad. So real estate is one area, because there's real estate, and then there's real estate house flippers, property managers, just like the whole thing. But that person starts with you as a broker, and then, by the way, I have a side hustle of X, Y, and Z. Well, that's a collective mid-market space, depending on that gross revenue, number of people, all of that stuff. So, but you get the higher level skills to elevate yourself to provide those higher level services by specializing in some form. It could be an app. You could
And
specialize in an app.
And all of these are these industry-wide niches, like for us, we love working with attorneys, but we love working with that mid-market space because of the complexity. But you can
Exactly.
totally just be work in the lawyer space with just solos. I mean, that can happen and you're going to get paid more because you have a deeper knowledge. These industries like engineering, like physicians, like nonprofits, like Sarah said, real estate can have easier clients and then more complex ones. So as you dive into the more complex ones, and obviously the firms, as they get larger, you have multiple personalities to work with inside the firm, whether it's multiple partners, it becomes more of a space that you can actually do the extra services of compensation and calculations and forecasting and budgeting that the smaller guy still could use, but doesn't really have the money to pay for that. And you'll have more really revenue to pay for, more money in the coffers to pay for those services.
So our next one should be about, what's our next slide? Is it working?
It will turn.
I just wanted to say here too, when we're talking with the solos, a lot of times they're just taking on their client if they can fog a mirror.
Mhm.
And and so when you're really vetting out whether you want to take on a client or not, to me, that it helps with that definition of mid-sized firm. Kind of touching on what you just talked about, Linda, what kind of clients are they servicing right now? Who are they servicing? And we have a unique ability to look in to their books and see who their clients are when we're doing our diagnostic reviews. That really tells you a lot about whether they're beginners, newbies, mid-sized, what they're doing. It's a very incestuous field, the legal field. They all know each other. They all work for each other at some point in time.
Yeah.
So they're solo, mid-size, big, solo, mid-size, big. They keep doing that
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah. I love that you say that, Steve, because sometimes in the insight, we realize, do you realize that you're servicing a practice area you haven't identified yet? But you are servicing it kind of on a default, kind of accidentally for some people. Employment law specializing in business law, just by near the mirroring of how much employment law plays into business law.
And we get the insight of looking at it and then looking at the metrics and be able to give that information to the person. They may know it in their heart where they're making more money, but if they're really loving one part of it, start to analyze where the money, where are they more profitable? I mean, those are the things you get to do with mid-market clients. You can still do it with a solo, yes, but in the long run, when you're doing it with a mid-market firm, I think you're able to really dive deep into exactly where they're at and how they're going to get to that next level, because everybody wants to get to the next level, I think, when you talk to them.
It is a challenge to that next level. It's not an easy jump. We hear people say going from 700 to 1 million is a huge road. And then 1 million on up. Some we have accidentals that they just get there and you're like, wait, you're at 3. Tax planning, hold on, what happened here? But Linda, why don't you tell the story about our first one?
Yes, so our first client, and this story we're telling this story because it fell into our laps. Sarah actually got the client and reached out to me because she knew I work with lawyers and I had already started on the pathway of specializing my firm. And it was data migration. And I know I couldn't have done that data migration alone. It was on a product I had not even ever seen before. And we kind of dove in head first, but this is a pathway to getting a mid-market client. You could have a client, I'm thinking like a contractor that's doing, and contractors are kind of like attorneys, they're very notorious for doing things really manual and backwards. You can come in and really razzle dazzle them with a data migration, move them over, and you get them out of being antiquated. And then you're like, I love this, hello, modernization, because sometimes they don't know what they don't know. So you have to they may hear it from their colleagues, like, oh, well, I'm using this software. Why are you not, I'm using Notify. Why aren't you using Notify? And then they're like, well, I never heard of it. And then it can dive into, well, if they're doing it on paper, still ripping off the carbon papers and handing the slips to the people in there as they're doing the construction. I know this for a fact because I'm watching it happen at my house. I'm like, what is this piece of paper? There's not even a business name on it. So, I mean, that's where you can get them to a point where they're not handwriting everything. And there's a lot.
Back to what we were saying earlier, you can specialize in an app, which helps you modernize a firm, but you also have the terminology of data reorganization, what is that?
Yeah, well, when you think about it, our first client, what happened? It was a law firm that was working in a program that was really antiquated, PC law. And
Mhm.
we came in and we're like, wait a minute, your trust account's not balanced. So if they have that extra piece, whatever it is, it could be medical billing and have something in that part of the equation for that industry, engineering company, whatever is going on that's not working, just right down to the chart of accounts. I mean, I don't think we've had maybe one or two clients where we haven't done a migration where we haven't had to realign their chart of accounts because it wasn't even ready for them. It was, the canned
Well, it
one.
was maybe the inherited set, or it was a
or built off
hodgepodge of thought process, or as we all love to see, every vendor name, every client name on a chart of account. Our COAs just look like a, canvas of crap, is kind of what it is. But the last part of this whole thing in this moment, and this happened to us in our story, was the dazzling with the metrics. We were able to show and identify what was going on as best we could with what they wanted to hear. Now, mind you, it always comes in bite-sized chunks. Not everyone's ready for the whole pie. You sliver it off. It's
Right.
the story
and-
that you tell. And then you go through that piece. And when you dazzle them with these metrics, it begins to unlock more opportunity for advisory services and allows you to be that trusted partner and give them this story of how it is that we're going to help you build your business. So with that, we kind of drive into this mid-market, and this is one area that starts it. This is
And
just one section.
It truly started it, Sarah, when we got this client had a bookkeeper in place. And I can remember you and I talking about it. Well, we're not going to have them ongoing. They're still our client years later. Because of the metric side, the bookkeeper had a lot on her plate to do just the data entry, the daily data entry, but they couldn't and didn't really have the
Well, let's be
capability.
fair. Not every person in these offices are bookkeepers. They
No.
are people that have inherited a piece of the pie to work on.
They're the best
And they become
paralegals.
that like high level admin that's now, oh, it's my executive assistant that does all the travel, but also manages HR and also manages this. Like, do you realize that you just gave them 17 hats of things to do?
Mhm.
And they're never going to do the one that you need the most. Don't get skimp in the accounting section, because you'll pay for it. You will never have the metrics to help you drive your business at that point. And that's not what you see too often in mid-market too. So you, even on the entry, on the first blush of talking, you identify these key people in that space so that you say to them, we'll be working closely with you as an owner, from owner to owner perspective, but we'll also be working with this identified individual in your environment so that we can have a conduit of information coming to us and back to you in a concise way. And we have one person that does this with us.
And she's phenomenal. We couldn't do it without her. And that kind of led us into, oh, this was so much fun. I love doing this work. I love the data migration. I love getting this bigger client where we're able to do like, oh, we can do this. We can add classes. We can do this and that
Yeah.
in multiple
Yeah.
states. We could do all that, locations. So we wanted more. And how do you get more? So hopefully we get everybody in the room excited about getting more clients like this. You got the seed planted on how you may be able to do it. Now you got to market yourself. So
Well,
market.
this is your favorite space, Linda. Let's be honest here. This is what you do so well for us. I mean, to share a little bit about who we are. I do a lot of the operational support. I do a lot of the interaction on sales, but we kind of divide and conquer in this space, and you have nailed this for us. And I appreciate
I
it.
don't know about nailed it, but I'll take it.
Tell the story.
Well, the thing is so when it comes to marketing, so if you're sitting in this space where you're working with smaller clients, you want to move to mid-market, you have to shift how you're getting yourself out there. Just like when you shift to go to, if you're thinking about even going into a niche, I can remember like I needed to let people know about it. Starting right out with your website. And if you don't have money for a website, you can do the Google My Business account, which I think it might be called Google Business now, not Google My Business.
I just want to remind you, we're good on time.
Okay,
We're
good.
good on time.
But it's
Yeah.
a searchable Google, Google's king. Where do you go and do something? So you're going to search on Google, have a Google Business website. It's tiny, it's small. Start there. You can always develop your own website after, but at least start there. They're little canned ones. You don't have a lot of choices, but get your address, use your full address because that keeps you mobile friendly. You want to make sure that you're able to see people are gonna see.
Ooh,
So you
good
really
point.
do have-
Mobile friendly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on your website too. If you have a real full-blown website, please look at it on mobile. I think actually it was Lean Law, Jonathan from Lean Law looked at mine, or maybe Elizabeth, and she's like, part of your thing cuts off, and I didn't realize it. Now that I'm in Kajabi, I can see they give you that view.
Mhm.
On WordPress, I had trouble with that. And then you want to start your content, and Sarah hears me say that every once in a while. I'll start to write the articles about the things that we do, the experiences we have, stories to try to get the clients in the door. And then sometimes I'll do something, and I always call myself the accidental marketer, where I'll do something and all of a sudden solos start to come to me, and I'm like, oh, that's not what I want. So you have to shift your perspective on what you're telling them, learn their pain points, learn what they're looking for. I did an article on advanced client costs, which is law specific, but it got me attorneys around the beginning of the year, because they probably had their tax person going, what is this? And why is the person putting it here? And why is it so bloated? It's sitting on your balance sheet and it hasn't been moved down. And they start investigating it, and then they see I know what I'm talking about, and that leads into the phone call, which leads into the meeting with me and Sarah. Compensation, I mean, the things that a mid-market firm would be looking for, no matter what industry, you want to direct the blogs toward that. And if you start to see it coming at you where you're getting the wrong client, then you need to make that shift to get the right client. And then you can take the client if you want, or better off refer it to somebody else and say, look, I'm really seriously focusing on mid-market, and I'll give you these small ones, and then if you get any bigger ones you don't want to do, you give them, and that works too as referrals. That's how we do a lot of that. You need to be on LinkedIn if you have a business. I really believe that. Maybe not so much with, I think with all these size businesses, you really need to have that presence on LinkedIn, because guess what? It's searchable on Google. You want to have that professional look when you're dealing with that size, these size firms. You're looking at maybe board of directors, and you want to have that look so that when they find you, you're searchable, you're findable, and then they've got this professional page.
Yeah, I was going to say, Linda, isn't it really key if when you're attracting a mid-market, because it is a certain style of business, you would want that presence or that persona that is consistent between your site and your
100%.
profiles.
Same
You have
thing.
your personal stuff, but you want that. Yeah. Okay.
And you want to be posting and sharing posts, and they don't have to be articles, but you want to share posts on where you think your client's sitting at night watching TV and going through, like if they're 40s, Instagram,
You
30s,
think TikTok's their thing?
TikTok might be the thing. Hey, I'm looking at it and I'm way past
I
that.
mean, look at tax Twitter. They just eat it up with all the bad tax advice. So
Yeah.
you can identify yourself in a different
right?
space.
And you want to make sure that you start to have reviews. So Google reviews, see, Google's going to see you. If you're brand new, Google takes a bit of time for it to grow legs. But when it starts to see you and you start seeing good reviews and you want to answer them, if you can get a friend to write questions to you on there also, that's
Oh, that's a
another
good
way.
idea.
Yep, have the questions, but have the questions peppered with your keywords. That's how you get the searchability. It's all about the searchability in Google. Frequently asked questions, and I haven't done this yet, but that's another piece that's going to help boost your website, is having a frequently asked questions piece on your website. Email marketing, which is something else that I have not really delved deeply into, but I think is a phenomenal way to get customers. Have that MailChimp. Okay, we're here, right? We're in Google, we're in Intuit Space. MailChimp, that ability to build those out. Get that list. That list is gold. Those are your customers, your potential customers. Those, they don't often buy the first touch point with you. It takes multiple. So having that as well is good to have. If you can get into paid ads eventually down the road, I don't know which ones are really the best. I've heard Google ads are great. I've heard YouTube ads are great. Facebook's not so great. So, I mean, it really depends on
You
your.
got to get comfortable with what you want to do because of the commitment. So I think bottom line, no matter what, and that's where I appreciate how we divide and conquer. You're more committed in that space. You've got the legs for it and you enjoy it.
I enjoy
It's
it.
not that I don't enjoy it. I'm okay to be spotlighted on.
No, and
I
you're
just
really
am more
good.
committed to the business and making sure we service what we sold in that regard. And we partner up this way. So
Yep.
I
And
think your
monitor
tips
your
are great.
reviews. Make sure you monitor your reviews. If you get a bad review, answer to it. So
There's got to be a good way to answer it too. I've heard that before. So
and there's Google Alert. You put your name in Google Alert, so you get alerted, because it's hard to follow where all these come from. Make sure you get
Mhm.
your name in, your business name in Google Alerts so that Google will tell you if something comes on the internet that has your name in it. And Missing Letter is another product. If it looks like I am spending a ton of time posting, it's Missing Letter that's helping me with that. So that's another one. And it's spelled missing with a LTR, not letter of the word. So that's another great product to use. So
Well, let's
Whew.
move into advisory services. And
yes,
this word advisory that some people fallen in love with, some people are just like, "Ugh, I'm over this word. You all
It
tell
kind
me
of-
to do it. I don't know
it-
what I'm doing. Everyone, business coach out there is telling me how to do it. How do
and
you do
don't
it
you
for
think
you?
it's the word of was the word of one of the connects a few years ago. It was like advisory. They were kind of, I remember sitting there saying, what the heck are they talking about? What does advisory mean? And I figured, why don't we ask everybody here what they think advisory means? Because I think it means that it's kind of like mid-market. It's a word that could mean
Or
something.
niche. That was a big, that if you want to reflect back to that, I think I like the word specializing. AKA niche. But I'm curious if you all want to unmute and just share what you think it is, or if you even feel like you're kind of doing it, but you don't know if you're getting paid for it. That's okay too. Like, we're all kind of stepping into it. Anyone?
Anyone want to talk? Who's sleeping? Did we bore you to tears already?
Yes, my dear friend Steve.
I was just gonna say, this makes me think about when you walk off the beach into this water, you've got
Mhm.
to have your procedures in place and really buttoned down tight. Because we can't give the level of advisory services that they're going to expect us to give if we don't have our act together. Now, with a solo, you can get away with it a little bit more in
Mhm,
that you kind of can learn and punt as you go.
mhm.
And our SOPs and our procedures and all that serve us well in the solo environment. And it doesn't hurt to have that mix of businesses. And this is why I'm saying this. So have a sprinkling of solos and have your mid-size and all that stuff. Because if you lose
Mhm.
a mid-size at $3,000 a month, that hurts. And our solos are such great testing grounds for what I call science experiments. You know, we're gonna try this one on this client this month and see how it goes. And then we'll bring it into our mid-size, we'll bring it into our larger clients, or it gives you the confidence as you're developing your advisory services. And to some of the things we've talked about in prior Friday Law Lab meetings, don't jump on the KPI wagon and give them 20 KPIs right out of the starting gate in your advisory services.
Mhm.
Pick 2 or 3 pain points and make them talk about it, and then focus your advisory services in on those KPIs as you go along.
Can I ask you, because I love you dearly and I love what you say. Can I ask you now if I
Thank
steal
you.
some of your words and say compliments of my dear friend Steve? Is that okay in our presentation?
Absolutely. I mean, I just, when I think of, that's why I gave the definition of my definition of mid-sized firm. The last law firm that I worked in, I was their CFO. We were a $25 million a year law firm,
Yeah.
52 attorneys.
Yeah.
Big.
It was massive.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that was a big firm.
That's
Yeah.
a big firm. Yeah.
To
Yeah.
me, $1 million puts me in the mid-sized firm arena in this market.
I agree.
Well, for one, think about it. $1 million in gross sales can put you in a completely different tax bracket
Yep.
as an individual. If you're a solo owner of that firm, it constitutes different entity structures that you may or may not need depending on
Well,
what
and
you're doing.
what does that tell you about what they're doing?
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
their
Yeah.
train has left the station. They're on their way.
And
you know.
it's a door that creaks open just a tad, like you're saying, where you're going to open up into this big, wide space of all these things, because really that volume is funneled in. That management sneaks on you. You got to get it managed, and you change your dynamics. Also, within it, you have other things to think about. What are the municipality requirements? What are the additional requirements with your state? there are so many more pieces, like you said, there are key metrics that you could monitor, but
Well,
there are
here's,
also compliance work things.
this
that you-
happened to us this last week. We have a
Yeah.
what I'm defining as a mid-sized law firm. It's 3 partners. They're on their way to that million mark and plus, and they're really doing well. They had no idea, speaking of municipality, that they owed the
Mm.
Denver occupational privilege tax on their
Mhm.
payroll. And I said, and here's where I was in the advisory role with them. I
Yeah.
said, okay. I said, you're a corporate. Most of the work you do is corporate. You're setting up businesses for people. What are you telling your new clients?
Yep.
Are you don't
I
even know
love
about
it. I
you don't
love
even
it.
know about this. And he said, well, how come nobody told us? And I said, they did. When you registered with the state of Colorado, you got a packet in the mail with a list of classes you could go to. Oh, I just threw that away. And I said, you need to be advising your clients
Mhm,
about this. And
mhm.
so I told him about all the municipalities in our part of the country that have this tax, because not everybody has it. I said, if you have a client with employees in Greenwood Village, Colorado, they have to pay this tax, but they don't have to in Pueblo or whatever. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you can really start by listening to them and tuning in on their pain points. And now we have a story to share with other clients about, I'm not going to obviously say XYZ law firm didn't know they had to
Right.
pay the tax, but we can say we had another client that had this same problem.
Mhm.
I'm sure you run into that all the time. And that turns into things that you
Yeah.
can advise them on and bring them along with. And I get all passionate about this.
I
I-
love, thank you.
Question. Uh,
Yes.
so, if we're doing advisory, we don't do taxes, so
Yeah.
we're kind of in this weird situation where sometimes we're kind of pitted against the tax person. Other times we work very well with the
Yeah.
person doing or the firm doing the taxes. So I was just hoping somebody could speak to that, like.
Yeah, absolutely.
How you're
I've had,
advising without having that knowledge around the taxes.
so we don't do tax, but
don't.
so what we do is but my business partner on my other business, she is an enrolled agent. She does tax. So I generally I liken it to, okay, I'm a business owner. I have my knowledge. This is an area that would need to be defined. Let's have a financial meeting with your tax person. You could structure it as the partnership
Mhm.
so that you're not precluded from the conversation. And I fully agree with you. What happens in those meetings sometimes is it feels like it's working against you. You're like, wait,
Tell
I'm
you.
working upstream this way. We decided this, and you slam me with this whole thing. And I'm like, what's behind it? What's the logic? So I feel you. And so sometimes what we've been doing for a while now, and this may help you, is basically right off the bat in the
Right.
onboarding, in the initial conversation, who's your tax individual?
Can
How's
you-
that relationship? How frequently are you meeting them?
And
And
can
what
you
is it
do
that
us
you
for
like
them?
to see with them?
And we asked to meet with them. Is it all right if we speak with them? And
Yeah.
they're like, oh, I've never had anybody ask me that. But you know what? Sometimes it's good to get that little relationship with them prior to, they know that we don't do taxes, so there's no threat there. And that makes a big difference, doing it now as opposed to doing it April 14th or March 14th. Having that.
Rochelle just unmuted on that. Let's see what do you have?
Well, I think don't doubt what you know. Like, so in the end of this, my first lawyer situation. So the CPA is what connected us. So we had a meeting with him because we were working on, okay, what are we going to do here? There's some big money owed to the trust account, and what are we doing here? And so he had some knowledge on the tax end, but it was funny because the CPA is like, well, we really should do a report that shows that the trust account balances to the bank account that balances to the QuickBooks account. I'm like, that's three-way reconciliation. That's basic of what we would do every month for a client. We
Mhm.
just had the problem that the trust account wasn't reconciling. So the CPA wasn't even aware of three-way reconciliation in trust accounting. So they know one side, but we know the other. So together you can be a powerful force for your client.
I love
And-
that.
That would be
And don't be afraid to reach out to the CPA/tax preparer on a quarterly basis, put it on your calendar and tell them the books are done. Would you like to take a look and give our shared client your viewpoint of where they are so far this year? Maybe they have to make an estimated tax payment. Maybe, they're going to say, let's go ahead and change the threshold on fixed assets. And we're going to tell you anything over $700, we're going to depreciate, but under $700 is going to be expensed. That gives you all those tools throughout the year, and it creates that relationship, and it makes you the expert into what Rochelle was saying. Don't doubt what you know,
Mhm.
because most of the CPAs don't want to do what we're doing.
Right.
They just don't want to do it. And that's good. That's good for us.
And they really don't. They're
Well,
like,
they can't be that to everything because you've had so much tax rules and reforms. And I love what you guys are saying. Gosh,
yeah,
Linda,
and it really, that's
lucky.
what this is, right? Sarah, providing advisory service is not that once a year you talk to your client at tax time. It's a relationship that you grow through the year. That's what makes it so powerful. What everybody just said, we have conversations with them, whether you're meeting with them monthly, weekly, whatever the size of the client and whatever their needs are. You want to be able to provide that relationship. That's where the advisory grows from. If they're tax planning and you're not involved and you don't know where it's going or headed to, you're flying blind. You really need to have that conversation for sure.
Mhm,
And of course,
mhm.
like Steve said, KPIs, right? We're not going to dive into these. If you're all here, you probably know it. If not, a KPI is a key performance indicator. It's just a measurement. And really, these are just some thoughts on what they can be, what you can do for advisory. You can do financial KPIs. Come on, change slides. There we go. Marketing KPIs, which is one. Right now, with the economy slowing down, you're going to see a lot of the firms are going to start to take money off the table for marketing. So they might want to analyze how well that's been going. A lot of times firms will put a ton of money at it and never look at it again. And they're just throwing money out the door. So it's
Well, some will do it on that static
Mhm.
mentality, like you're saying. Then they do this pause moment. And then that's where I feel like what Steve was saying earlier, it opens that door to realigning that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm thinking I turn the fire hose off and I need to turn it back on. So they're going to go spend the money again. It's not just, regardless of where we're at economy wise, they're going to go do it. But then it's a more methodical process because of what their gain is, or they might change how they're going to market themselves. So
And staff production is a big one that we run into a lot with the bigger firms because there's a larger staff. So they want to see who's producing, who's not. And they may know it in their gut, but they want to see the numbers. The numbers are always really eye-opening. And of course, you can go on to advisory services, and payroll are big. And this is an area that Sarah probably will sing to the rafters because she's our payroll girl. But a lot of firms, place to analyze for the firm is benefits.
well, I think when you think about mid-market, when you think about solos, what are their biggest expense? Rent and then payroll, because rent is larger than payroll. You get into the mid-market, what's the biggest expense?
Mhm.
Payroll.
Yeah.
Payroll's that
They're people.
hard.
Yeah.
So, but what we're at in this current economy is how do I retain and keep these people? Because obviously turnover comes at a high price.
Yeah.
The rate of a cost of that is really high. How do I keep these people? How do I ensure the benefits align to retain them? How do I build the foundation to ensure that they're okay, that they're happy, and they're getting mentored correctly or taught correctly or leading correctly, and have that full management? Because what happens is you get these firms and you identify, as we have in our own terminology, and I'm sure it goes across the board, the rainmakers, all these operators, all these different things, but you start to identify these junior level people or this mid-market, mid-salary people, and what are they producing for you, and how, and you start to redo like you're saying here, you're analyzing their salaries, you're looking at their perks, you're
Mhm.
looking at the total package. And it's different today than it was 2 years ago.
Yep.
And it's different today even more so because we've got the hybrid model even more so. Thankfully for our industry, it's been embraced. We've been doing it a hell of a lot longer. Yahoo.
Yes. Not all the
But-
industries are doing that. A lot of them are demanding staff to come back. And you have to sit down sometimes with a client and say, how valuable is this person to you? Because if the person that you have that you're demanding that coming back, that's actually a little bit reprehensive about coming back, for whatever reason, maybe they feel we've had conversations where the person says, I'm not as productive because he keeps coming in and interrupting me. I get more work done for him at home. Analyze it. You can analyze that for your client. and-
Well, I guess the other thing is that we need to identify this area, as we've discussed, as an advisory service and to
Right.
be paid for that. And that's been a hard one because we offer payroll services.
Mhm.
But we didn't know that we were going to offer the kitchen sink with the payroll service.
Well, that's the thing, right? So I bet a lot of people here in this room are thinking, I've already been doing all of these things. I didn't realize
Yeah.
it was advisory but are you being
Yeah.
compensated for it? And that's the big key. You want to be compensated for it. And,
Exactly.
and hiring staff, we've delved into that with the client as well, where, in the beginning, he was hiring and bringing people in, they didn't stay long, they were leaving, and we took a look at it and like, okay, your pay level comparative to the same job right next door is way off. You're way too low. And that delved into payroll and salary and perks. Perks became a big thing. Benefits became a big things. What
We
payroll-
have one in particular that is a revolving door.
Oh,
And
constant.
we see what's happening. And it's only until the owner of that particular industry and firm wants to make the change.
Mhm.
Until then, that revolving door is adding stress onto all of the other staff that has to constantly work on doing it. And now we're going to reframe that advisory conversation yet again with, do you realize your revolving door is actually burning out the key people that you want to keep?
It's the
Let me
morale in
explain
the
it to you.
firm is in the toilet. The morale in the firm is in the toilet.
Yeah.
And
then-
people are shifting and taking on other tasks as people leave. So their job that they started with was this, and now it's become this. It's just horrible. And-
So,
And then
Celia, you have something. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, the cost of hiring, onboarding a new employee as well, are you quantifying that for them? And then I have one other question, which is, when you're doing this kind of work, what? If you were in-house, what would that fall under? What kind of, who would be a staff person who would be taking care of that? Would that be like an HR director, a controller? I'm just curious where all
Yeah,
these
it's a
hats
great
are falling
question.
under.
It depends on the firm. So it depends on how the firm is set up. We do have some that have HR consultants with an office manager and an accounting person all in tandem. We do have some firms that have just HR, which is honestly what we're seeing is we don't have an HR on staff. It's always a consultant. Always see it that way.
Right.
And a lot of the payroll services have HR services. If they go to the elite payroll, that comes with it. So they get the designated person, because a lot of these things you don't think about. And this is one big one that happened to us, was the employee handbook was so outdated. Policies were outdated, which was born into, Sarah and Nicole thoroughly read this one and they interpreted it one way. What was intended was another way. They actually had an attorney on staff create their handbook, and the way it read could be interpreted multiple ways. So,
Well, but what comes to answer your question too, is what comes of it is the person doing payroll, that's a component. It's like accounting. It's bank fee, data entry, like that's a component, right? But you have to think beyond that whole space, because you're going to run payroll and then you have to know, okay, if this person's going to leave their job, do I get to pay them PTO or not? What's in the employee handbook? This person's going to ask for paid time off or unpaid time off. What's allowed if you go over, under? So I hope it just kind of giving you, when you're identifying in a mid-market space, it may not be one person, it might be a couple people. And what you do there, Celia, is you change the dynamic on that. So, oh, great, we're going to help you run payroll. And you start to build a process, and it's not overnight. And you start to build a structure, and then you can identify in the advisory, I actually see room for improvement over here. I'd like to see us do it this way. Our tool that we engaged with allows us to have the HR support. I'd like us to utilize that tool. I see that you're spending a lot in this HR. Let's talk about that. We don't want to take away somebody else's livelihood, but let's talk about how we can marry those up to offer. Maybe there's templates. Maybe there's other ways of supporting. That level of advisory and that identifier, it's interesting. It grows. It's not an overnight thing, especially if you're taking a solo to that next level or you're coming into that space. You got to identify it. Sometimes it's just a crapshoot. It's just a madness. It's just I call it the funny house. I'm like, wait, who's doing bonuses? Who's doing this? It's like 5 people in the pool and you got to move on. And
But a lot of
you
times-
redesign it.
With that advisory services, you know, you're doing your job when the client says to you, no one's ever asked me that question before.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a great thing.
That's a
Obviously,
beautiful thing.
do the
Yeah.
financial KPIs and all the things. Just some tools here that you can use that are in product for QuickBooks Online, as well as Spreadsheet Sync is part of it, which is an Excel on steroids kind of program. Reach reporting we like. Fathom we like with the attorneys because they like the pretty pictures. It just depends on the client and what their needs are, what you need to extract to. And Life Plan's another one, which we heard connects somehow to some Google thing. So you might want to consider Life Plan, which feeds into Google's.
Okay, I'll make a note to research that one. And Steve's unmuted, so if you want to talk as we're going, Steve, too, go for it.
Well, I was just gonna say, keep a spreadsheet by client
Mhm.
of the ways that you're saving them money and document that.
Awesome tip.
Oh, I love that tip.
Yeah, Sarah.
Oh, I'm going to add that tip in here.
And so I'll give you an example. I was doing a consultation on a potential client yesterday. And the amount of excitement of just doing the consultation, whether it was just infectious, it was crazy. But I noticed I did a KPI on her rent. And I said, did you know that you're at this much % rent? And she's like, yeah, and we hate it here. It's downtown.
Oh, boy.
There's drug addicts. There's, we're wondering if we can get in the building every day, blah, blah, blah. We want to move down south to the tech center here in Denver and all that. And I said, did you know that right now in our market, I saw an article the other day of which I sent her the copy after the meeting yesterday. I said, did you know in this market right now, you can get a real estate broker, find a new place. They'll work it out so the landlord buys out your old lease where you're at and you can move. And she was like, oh my God. And I'm like, that's going to save you probably about $3,000 a month. So there's, you can afford us now.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah, you're
Keep
basically
track of all those things that you're
Yeah.
saving money on.
Truly, because you want to get paid for these services. These are services, like Steve just said, if you've ever come across an article, and we've done this, we've come across something, say, this is really a good article for my client, send it to them. That little touch makes a big difference to make you that advisor above all other people they've ever worked with.
And
But
we
we-
made Cecily smile on that one. So.
Oh, I bet I'd smile too. That's a great story.
I love those stories. Those stories make you feel magical in what we're doing. It reminds us all the
It
hard work we're
excites
doing.
us, right?
Mhm.
And that's how and the best part is, all right, so you're doing this stuff, which is fun because you're helping the client save money. And now you're getting paid for helping them, which is the key, because that's where mid-market comes into play. But you have to make sure you have a really strong engagement letter where you outline what you're selling them. And outside of that scope, we want to mitigate scope creep. So you really want to have it, what you do, what's included, what's not included is just as important.
Huge.
And then, of course, we were going to tell some success stories, but I think we are already out of time.
Well, it'll be different, obviously, presenting, but this slide, I think is a really, I looked at this, I said, oh, this is kind of neat to see how you've put this together. This one, the mamas went, ooh.
Right, so you can take this, and we actually have a handout for everybody that will take you on the next 30 days to get you pumped up about this journey. So get into, if you're not specialized yet and you're working with multiple clients, nothing says you're going to throw out all your other clients. I still have legacy ones that I still work on as they fall.
We both do. Yeah.
But I still work in other industries because they're there, and I've had clients for 20 years. I'm not going to throw them away, or over 20, but you start to move yourself towards specialization, which is going to bring you that pathway of getting paid more. And then, you look at your software person, you could align with them to get clients that will help you. study and
Mhm.
learn the industry, which is, and that's ongoing, like Steve just said, that's ongoing. You're learning things
Mhm,
about the
mhm.
industry, and I'm gonna tell you, you're not gonna be bored. I thought I'd be bored. You're not gonna be bored. And then you're gonna get noticed, write for trade article, write for trade blogs that have to do with the industry that you've chosen or the vertical you've chosen. And just start to write for them. That's gonna get you recognized as that expert, and that gets you leading into this path to get the bigger clients to make
That's one way of doing it. There's the other way of doing it, which is
referrals.
probably more in line of what Steve and I do, which we do it local. We're grassroots in our approach. We do it within the industry, you know, within our field, but within it. And we're heavily referral based. And a lot of times we're that secret sauce that people are like, wait, I finally got to you.
I didn't know there was
Sometimes
a
I hear that.
Yep, strategic partnerships, you can start to align, like we had the Law Lab, which is the next slide. So you can have those strategic partnerships where you can pass along clients to each other. You start to develop that, depending on your industry or wherever you're ending up
Trying to
landing.
make a heart balloon.
Mhm.
Hit that button. Hit that button.
Oh, the handout, yeah, that's right. That's where the handout is, which is pretty
Trying to
cool.
make a heart balloon very horribly
Yep.
with my pen.
So that's the link to the handout, which will be in the slide deck in QuickBooks Connect. I'll give you guys all the handout too.
Can I show it to him?
Oh, sure.
It's so pretty what you did.
Thank you. And then head out to wherever. And that's the.
Head out to wherever, head out to breathe. Okay, so wait, go
I got
back.
that
Let's see the handout just really
Oh,
quick.
oh, you want to be actually.
I got it. Oh, hold on. Here it is. Let me pull it up.
That's the page. Yeah, that's the page.
This is the page. And then you go, will it share? Okay, do you see this? It's so pretty. And I was like, you did what for us?
So it's
Telling
a
you.
30-day guide to get you to
Isn't that
focus
beautiful?
for the year.
Yeah. I felt like I had a Christmas gift waiting for me last night when I opened this up. Because she's like, I've been sharing this with you for the last, I don't know how many weeks. I'm like, you haven't, because I'm
It
not in
wasn't
that.
shared. And she's like, I was expecting her to kind of come in and add her thoughts. And like, she never did. And I'm like, well, she got busy. And then I'm like, she pulled up the screen. I'm like, well, where's all the files?
Hi, Celia.
yeah.
Thank you for coming
Hi,
today.
thank you for coming and thank you for adding.
Yeah.
it.
Thank you for the input. What are you guys? I know we kind of broke off strategic to our group, but what are your thoughts? We'll do okay? Okay.
It's great.
Okay.
I thought it was great, especially the experience from, sharing from your first client. I think the history and story, it was really nice to hear.
Thank you. I feel like that's really, that what attaches you, because your story is different than our story, and it attaches you, and it makes it's nice to hear what other people are doing.
Stories make it memorable too. Even when you're writing blog posts, by the way, pull in a story, names have been changed to protect the innocent. I'm actually writing a book right now, and I have that kind of in the beginning. I'm like, names have been changed, and I kind of mix people up so it's not a defined person, but thank you, Joy. But I think that stories help people, real life stories help people kind of navigate their way into
should
it.
find out how many of those stories are me.
I'll let you know beforehand.
Michelle, I'm so proud of you. You stuck with it. I knew you said at one point, you're like, I want to just give up, Sarah, you just do this. And I'm so happy you did not do that.
And you finished it. That's
Thank
a
you.
huge milestone.
It is. It feels great.
Oh, good. I'm so glad.
That's your
And
first one.
congratulations.
Now onwards to the next one.
That's right.
After a little
She's like,
bit.
never that big.
I know. I knew that was coming.
Yes.
They don't all have to be that messy, but doing a big one like that does give you the knowledge that you'll be like, oh, I see it right away. I see where it's coming from.
So in the end, your Clio is balanced.
Mhm.
Everything is, oh
Yeah.
my God. And do you feel very much more confident in Clio is for some of the things that you like moving
Yes.
around? Good.
Yes, for sure. So,
Okay,
yep,
good. It all paid off.
it did. So that was really fun.
Every time we have something that comes to an end and we go on the next one, and Sarah's like, I hope it just kind of stays in the break. I'm like, oh yeah, maybe we'll have that. And the next thing you know, and the next one rolls in and I'm like, well, that wasn't much of a break. So,
I feel like I at least need a somewhat easy one. Then I may be ready to take on a bigger cleanup again. But
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
it's a great milestone. So I'm glad you got through it.
Thanks.
Yeah, so I can share, what I'll do is I can share the link for and if you all want to kind of go through it together, we could probably do that. It's a daily thing, maybe do a little something somewhere on the Facebook group to kind of follow the thing.
But
And
don't release it too early because it's for next week.
okay, I'll wait for next.
You can't do that. Yeah. It
Yes,
was a
our
sneak peek
bonus is
here.
Special.
Yeah, we can't have it out there, until, yeah.
But yeah, so we're in a next week, there will be no Friday meeting, but watch for us all week running around QuickBooks Connect live. And being on camera,
I'm
and
gonna walk.
I have to walk because I have to limp, but yeah, I have a bad knee. But we'll be running around, but we'll take you to the vendor floor and ask questions. So if you're on live, hop on with us. If you have any questions, we'll ask, or even later we can go back and find the vendors.
Oh, if you think of somebody that you want us to inquire, or,
Yes.
or if you
And-
want us to have on Law Lab too.
We'll try to sneak getting some of the main stages like Serena Williams, and we can kind of put our phone up and get a little recording of that for you on live so you can see some of it if we're allowed. That'll be fun. I'm excited. Except that
Okay.
we
Yeah,
can
I
get-
plan to be there, so look forward to meeting you guys in person.
Oh, you have to find us. Yeah, find us. We're gonna be there all week. We're going early because we're meeting with our staff and kind of doing an annual meeting
Oh,
thing.
but that's so exciting.
nice.
I'm so glad you told us that you're gonna be there. So we'll definitely look for you.
Yes,
You got
find
your
us.
classes all signed up?
Yes, I did that yesterday. So I
Okay.
did see your this presentation. So I did sign up for that. So
Oh, you're gonna be,
I'll
oh,
get
you
to-
got the sneak peek.
Yeah, I got to see what you guys are going to be talking about. So I'll be there. So I get there Tuesday. I
Okay,
think late evening. So
okay,
but
okay.
yeah,
Awesome. Well, we
I'm
will,
excited. I think it was through this. I think it was one of the meetings that we had. I want to say early summer that you mentioned about the QB Connect would be a good place for somebody like newbie like me. So I was
Yeah.
like, so I was like, all right, I'm excited to go and see what this is about and learn more.
Yeah, don't
Honestly, it
don't
was-
fill every waking minute. That's what I did the first time.
Yeah.
I made
Yeah.
every single session. I spent the day running, and don't do what I did. It was not.
well,
Okay.
we never, she and I didn't know that was our first time at QB Connect the first year that we went. We didn't even know
Yeah,
each other really per se, but that first year, it really opened my heart and my mind to the opportunities of being able to know that I could learn more
Yeah,
in this industry from these trusted individuals, and then to feel like we've been doing that and now we're that person. It's really it's fun. I mean, it feels nice to in our community and supporting all of us, like what we do in our niche. And
it's a
I'm
big love
excited.
fest when you get there. Like you'll see a lot of people going, "Oh," my God," and then everybody's hugging each other. But it's fun.
you're like one big ass family.
Nice.
You'll love it. It's a great
Nice to
conference.
hear.
It's got
Yeah,
great
yeah.
parties. Intuit does a great job. They spend a lot of money. So
Oh, give
prepare.
yourself time to, if just one little tip is giving yourself time to walk through the vendors
yes,
and really picking what you want. I mean, you're going to get a lot, right? But
wear sneakers is a
you
lot.
might want to like kind of ahead of time, maybe pick the ones that you really want to talk to so that
Okay.
you intentionally spend time there. So, yeah. And if you need anything from us, obviously,
Yeah.
like I told this one guy who was brand new to XeroCon and he stuck with me. He's like, you blew my mind. I would have never met these people had I not hung out with you. He was my wing guy.
Yeah, find us. Sure.
So we had fun. but
Thanks for the tip.
Good to see you next week. That's awesome.
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Well, Steve, I'm gonna razzle dazzle you. We're gonna get together one day and you and I are gonna be like,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
oh, it's like the progressives are like they're up here, and I'm like, I can only see far away from up here.
I mean, it's such a great look for you. I love it. I love it.
I may just have to bring them just because I do need to read, and I'm having a hard time reading on my phone even right now. So
Hit that age.
That's why I got this giant screen so I could see everything.
yeah, that's what I have a 34. I love that you and Tanya have the same. I have a 34 at my other office, but oof.
Then when you know you're old when it's really bright, like you have to put it to the most bright, like the max bright, and then you know that you've hit the old age button.
Yeah.
That and going to bed early. I'm like, I'm gonna go to the parties, but I'm not hanging out too long. What? Stay. I'm like, no, I need my sleep.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you guys for listening and I I wasn't nervous, but I just knew I didn't practice, so I felt uncomfortable in that we haven't
feel
gotten
better?
there.
You feel better? You did great.
I do. I think the little tips I want to add in. I know that we can't change our slides like you said, but the little
No, but
tips and
we're gonna have to pace ourselves really.
pace
really
ourselves.
well.
That's why I was
15
saying,
minutes.
Linda, you're okay with time. Like I was kind of figuring out what kind of clue could I give you.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing was,
do
is
this.
I want to have the part in here that Jeannie Whitehouse, who I adore, she was talking about KPIs and demystifying that. And I want to kind of marry what Steve was saying with what she was really like, it's a focus, defining the focus. Because hearing KPIs for some business owners is like, what are you talking? Like, I don't.
Deer in headlights.
Yeah, I don't even want to do it. Like they know the word, but they don't want to do it. Well, let's refine the focus, define what is important to you, and then we can. So
It all starts with them. I mean, when you're starting to talk about KPIs, you want to know what about them. What are your personal goals? And then move on to their business goals.
but they hear those words and it kind of, it definitely, because larger
Depends on the
firms.
person. It depends on the
do
person.
this.
Sometimes they'll go, I
Yeah.
want this, like Steve said, you can't do 15. That's too much. If we had a guy, remember?
You do 15, I'm walking out.
You'll never be able to refine your thoughts, right?
I
All right.
gotta ask your opinion too, really quick. I have a client, they opened up a second IOLTA, and I kid you not, they're like, well, you can just get the information from the on-staff office manager. You don't need to have access to this account. I said, what in God's mind made you think that that was a normal way of me doing my job? You tie my hand behind my back? So we'll see if they're a client in about 3 weeks, because I'm about ready to fire. Like, that's ridiculous, right? I think that, I feel like that's part of a topic, the conversation that we all deal with, but we kind of shove under the rug of like this transactional, non-relationship style clientele. And what do we do with them?
Mhm. They're unique.
They're unique. My
Unique.
partner said, you're unique, so you got to go. You're fired.
Well, thank you. And we'll all see you next week at QuickBooks Connect. So yeah, if you have anything, reach out to us. We will find what we'll go ahead right over there.
Travel safe, don't get sick, okay?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Your mask is somewhere here.
Bye, everybody. See you
Bye-bye,
next-
everybody.
Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Bye-bye.